So welcome to the Stand Canada chapter call for March, March 8th. We're going to go through a few topics today. Unfortunately, our communications director was not able to attend the call. So I will be speaking in her stead here. She gave me some stuff to say to you guys, and yeah, hopefully that will be fine. So let's jump right in. I'm going to check the questions and answers periodically between slides, so please bear with me if you have some trouble. Okay, hold on. If you have some trouble viewing what's going on, or if you have, actually maybe I should confirm with you guys, can you see the screen? It is being shared. Just type in the questions and answers box. If you can. And if you cannot, can you guys hear me? Okay, I got one yes. Okay, great. Thanks for the text, guys. So basically what we're going to look at today, now that we're coming up to the end of term, we'll be taking a look at how elections processes can work on the chapter level, how transitions are going to be working, some updates from Elizabeth on the 10th anniversary campaign for Stan's 10th birthday this year, some opportunities for chapters, and then I'll take questions formally. So let's jump right in. And I'll check back again for questions. Great. Thanks, guys. I feel like there might be a time delay on how you guys are watching. This will be interesting. Okay. Yes. So in terms of elections, this isn't something that Stand Canada has traditionally intervened in any large sense, and we certainly don't have any intentions of dictating how student elections should be run, as it's very specific to the campus and to the regulations of your student government. But I wanted to take a moment, especially for the chapters who have new execs who might not be familiar with these kinds of processes and requirements, to just go really quickly through the regular kind of procedure for running a student election. So the first thing I want to bring to your attention is to make sure that you know the deadlines for the elections from your student government. They're probably relatively soon. I know that in some campuses they're in March, and then sometimes they're in April. Make sure that you're familiar with the official rules and requirements for elections on your campus. For example, certain positions might be required to be filled, like a president or a treasurer. Some campuses have requirements for particular positions that you have to complete some sort of training over the summer. Make sure you know what are the requirements there. And then make sure you also pay attention to the other kinds of requirements that might be around for your chapter over the summer. For example, if you have a bank account with your student government, there might be some paperwork that needs to be done for that. You might need to renew the account or change hands of the person who's responsible for handling that account. Other things like office space might be an issue. Regular club registration, annual registration can be an issue. Participation for events like clubs days or clubs fairs in September might already be coming up in the next few months. So make sure you are aware of the requirements there. And in terms of procedures for actually running the election, This is kind of just like a sample overview of how it could work, and please do comment while I'm speaking. When I go through all these points here, I will go back to the questions and see what you guys have to offer. If you want to share any experiences on your campus related to these types of procedures, if you think that one is particularly important or useful or doesn't apply to you or could be improved by something that you guys are doing, please do share, and I'll try to make this as collaborative as possible within the limitations of the platform. So the first kind of step for elections is to make sure that you advertise the positions that are open. I recommend, first of all, speaking with your members, engaging whatever email listservs you have and social media audiences, and make it really clear what positions are open on your executive, which should be all of them, should be up for election depending on how your campus works. It's a good idea, I think, to have a little blurb of requirements and kind of time commitment and things like that for each position that you have, and decide on within your chapter which positions on your executive are electable and which ones are not. There can be different rationales for doing it one way or the other. Next, you have to decide your voting base and who is qualified to vote within the Constitution and university regulations that might exist, as in your club constitution under the university. Most universities have that. This can be dependent on whether or not you get funding from your student government. If you do, you might not be allowed to decide who is qualified to vote and who isn't. Otherwise, you might want to think of if it should just be like the people on your mailing list or the people who come to your meetings regularly, however it works within the regulations at your university, and and how it's worked historically with your group in the past. Decide how your members will vote, whether it will be electronic, whether it will be in person, or a combination of both. I think it's normally a good kind of procedure to ask candidates to submit a little platform introducing themselves, especially if they're new to the club, why they want the position they've applied for, and maybe some ideas or proposals that they have for next year about why they think that that position in particular would be good for them, what kind of experience they have to offer. Even if all your positions will be acclamation, I think that going through this process makes people think a little bit about what they want to achieve and what they're bringing to the position. And it can be a good kind of formal process to show all the members in your club how things are working and maybe give them ideas about joining the executive in an elected position in the following year. Next, you can send out your platforms to all your voting base via email or social media or whatever with information on how to vote based on your decisions that you've come to in your current executive, and then decide when to hold your vote. Remember that some campuses have deadlines for when you must have your elected new executive list submitted to the student government, and make sure you meet those deadlines. Holding your vote either completely electronically or in person where you take in electronic votes as well. Both of those can be good. I would probably recommend doing it at a meeting, and then decide who is going to count votes. Makes sense to pick someone who would be reasonably expected to keep things confidential and to not have a particular bias. So maybe somebody who's leaving or graduating is a good person to be counting the votes. And then if you're submitting the votes electronically through email, think about if you should change your password during that time, or use somebody else's email account, could be one option. And then finally, once you've gone through all that procedure, announce the successful candidates with an email to your general membership, and make sure that you CC me on this so that I can start maintaining a list for the next year's executive. I'm going to be chasing after you guys for contact information for each of your executives as well. So a few additional issues that could come up with the elections. A lot of campuses, the stand groups can be smaller, which means that, or even in larger clubs, the groups can be kind of deciding in advance who's going to take what position, so that there's not necessarily competition for at least most of the positions, and not necessarily a bad thing at all, because it implies this kind of a consensus building activity within your group where you decide who has the skills that best fit what position. So this is a system that works perfectly well, and it's just important to go through the procedures anyway if your university requires them and if you think that it's useful for your group. In terms of vacant positions, so if you don't get candidates who have submitted applications or however you want to do that for a vacant position and there's nobody running for that spot, it's a good idea to not hide that fact and to just advertise it along with your whole elections process and the announcement of successful candidates, because that can be extra advertisement for you that you can just include in your regular correspondence with your membership. And people might look at the group of people who you've assembled for the next year executives and the platforms that they've put together and realize that that might be something that they're interested in doing. Great, so I'm going to check back now for questions, comments. Does anybody want to add something here? There's a big difference between the ways that some of you run your elections, I know, where much larger memberships, much newer memberships, these can all be a factor. So I'm just going to wait for you guys if you're typing. Okay, I'll check back later. So hopefully that was useful. Okay. So it's part of the goal of the chapters team at National this year to help you guys and support you through the elections process. I'm very flexible to hear what you guys need from us in that regard. If you need any help, I'm certainly here to help you go through the requirements of your campus, or to put together these kinds of procedures within your organization or codify them in some sense if that's something that you feel is necessary. So please know that I am here to support you with that. If you're really worried about not having people to fill vacant positions, particularly the important ones where it'd be difficult for the chapter to get started next year without a person in that role, please do notify me as soon as possible, and we can try to see how we can help you advertise widely in that position through our listservs and through our contacts at your university and in the admin, and also bring some experience and insight into that. So please do know that. The second part of the issues that we have to take into account for over the summer are transitions. This is a place where, based on your feedback and based on my experience working at the chapter level and at the national level as well, I think that this is a place where National can really help chapters in facilitating these transitions and building up a system for how these will work. This is the first year that we're trying to attempt this, so please be patient while we try to kind of recalibrate how things are working at every point, because we want to be very responsive to the feedback that we receive from each of you. This is also a time where we're testing out some ideas, and if you find that something that we've required from you is not useful or too much work perhaps, just be honest with your feedback, and we'll do our best to make sure that we are addressing the specific needs of your chapter in as much as possible. So one thing that we are going to do that will be a requirement for all chapters that is included in the chapter handbook that was released in September are transition meetings, and these will take place in April and May, depending on the schedules of your teams. And it's basically going to be me sitting down with at least one member of your executive. By default, this person would be the president of the chapter, and going through a kind of exit interview process. Even if the chapter president is staying on for the following year, I think it's important to do this meeting just so we can start compiling information about how the chapter runs at a more substantial level than we have in the past. So these meetings would be about probably an hour, and we go over a bunch of different points and collect information on the next executive. And then while I have you in that meeting, I can ask you questions and record the answers that I need. And then that way we don't have to ask you to fill out more forms or do a bunch of other stuff, that we can just try to get it all done in a 60-minute verbal one-on-one interview. The second thing that we're going to ask you to do is related to paperwork. So I'm going to try to keep this as minimal as possible. I'm looking around at the different procedures that we have at National in our Human Resources Department for transitions and facilitating transitions. And then also the types of documents that chapters have been compiling on the chapter level. So if you have assistance for transition that you haven't talked to me about, I'm very interested to hear how it works on your campus, and if there are any procedures that you have that could be useful to other chapters as well. So some things that will be required, we've been trying to move everybody over to Google Drive. This is extremely important for transition purposes just because it takes out this massive piece of work, which is handing off all your documents and organizing everything to the next executive. If we keep everything in the Google Drive associated with your chapter account with standcanada.org, then all that work goes away and it's easily transitioned from executive to executive from year to year. New executives can look back at archives even if they didn't interact directly with the executive of the year that they are looking at. So for example, say 3 years ago there was some sort of event on campus and the new executive is looking for resources to help them set up this event that hasn't happened on that campus in 3 years, then they have all the documents from the previous executive to help them look through that. So I'm sure you can all see how that can be a very useful thing. The second reason why that's very useful is that all the accounts under standcanada.org are sponsored Google accounts, which means that we have better features than the free accounts, and we are also able to manage them directly from the national account settings. So if, for example, a password is lost, we're able to reset it for you. If a chapter dies 1 year and then comes back the following year, you don't need to create a new email account. We can reset the password for you and we can control that. So those are really good advantages to using Google Drive. So I'm just going to pause a little bit again for questions. You can see that Scott, the executive director, joined us. Hey, Scott. You can't speak.
Hi, everyone. I realized as I was waving that my microphone was on mute, so I didn't bother saying anything. Anyway, hi, everyone.
Hey, Scott, thanks. Great. All right. Okay, I don't see anything. If you're trying to type questions and it's not working or something, please just text me. My phone number is in the Google Events. Great. The next bit of paperwork that's really required for the smooth functioning of chapters at the national level and passing on information from one executive to another is the communication of passwords. So things like Facebook, Twitter, other types of social media accounts you might have, or anything else. I know that some of you who are on this call have been struggling with getting previous accounts from past executives, especially if you haven't used your Twitter account in a few years, for example. It can be a huge hassle to get that going, so I'm going to be recording the passwords and keeping them in a kind of database so that we don't come across that issue anymore. But for that to be successful and useful, you guys have to update me with your passwords, and that's something I'll be collecting from you at the transition meeting. So please make sure that you do have those on hand and start collecting them if you don't have them now. The other thing is the executive list. So this is something that I'm going to keep at continuously, but I hope to have complete or mostly complete executive lists up till September going into the new year. So those are some issues of paperwork that I've been thinking about doing and implementing across chapters. There are some other ideas in the works, and again, I'm really interested to hear from you all about what might be useful for you, what kind of things would you like to have recorded, and yes, so please contact me anytime. The final stage of transitions will be orientation meetings. So every chapter last year that is active today went through orientations over the summer. It's ideal for the past president and the current president or the incoming president to be on this meeting together, but it's possible, especially now that we're doing transition meetings as well, for the orientations to happen only with the incoming president and any other kind of executives that they think it would be useful to have on that call. This is also about an hour call, so for those of you who didn't attend over the summer, these will happen over July and August, depending on your schedules, and they will basically be an overview of our goals at National. I'll be asking you questions about your plans for the following year for your chapter to see how we can best prepare in as far in advance as possible to help support you through different types of events that you might be planning. I can give you feedback on ideas that have been in the works over the summer or through the past term, and get some sense of how the challenges that you're going to be facing in the following year and what type of big projects or small projects that you might want to be working on that I can help you with. So last year, this was really, really very useful to have, and I think that was a good tradition going forward, and I please also for feedback there, that would be useful. Great, so that's about all I have to say for elections and transitions right now. Do I have any feedback from you guys in that regard so far? Scott, did that sound good to you?
I think it does. I got nothing to add.
Great, thanks. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so now I have an update on Stan's 10th anniversary campaign from Elizabeth, the communications director. Unfortunately, she was called into work at the last second, so she put together a kind of little couple paragraphs here, and I'm just going to read them to you in as animated and non-monotone a way as possible. So basically, what she has to say to chapters is this. Our anniversary campaign hit a few delays, but our Google photo album will be launched on Monday. Smiley face. When it goes live, we hope that all chapter members will get involved. We want to see pictures and hear stories about how you promote Stan's mission, post pictures of events, stories, and past activities, share successes, tell us what you were excited about. We want to hear all of it. No story is too big or too small. Tag others, Stan friends, and pictures to bring more people into the conversation. We want to show how much Stan has accomplished over the last decade and how far spread we have become. So for those of you who don't recall what the 10th anniversary campaign is, we're basically compiling a big Google photo album related to an event that will be a kind of storage repository for pictures and videos of events and posters and stories that people will submit and have submitted about their experience with Stan all through the last 10 years across Canada, where our membership is now spread around the world. So this can be potentially, with enough participation, can be a huge project that will show the breadth and the beauty of what Stan has been doing over the last decade. And it is a huge achievement that we have many big achievements under our belt so far. So I encourage all of you to check it out. She continues, over the months of March and April, there are several conferences and events at various Canadian cities which relate to Canada's genocide prevention efforts. I'll post them on Facebook and Twitter, so keep an eye out for updates. I'll tag the chapters that are nearby, whose members might be interested in attending. Share these events throughout your own networks too, so we can engage as many students across the country as possible. For those of you who attend these events, it'd be great if we can post something to show you guys getting engaged. These could be pictures of your members at the event, or we can also share articles or tweets or blog posts that come from the event. Any kind of social material you have, send it to Elizabeth or me, Adi, and we'll get it up on the Facebook and Twitter pages. And this, I'm sure you can imagine how that can have a really great impact. Elizabeth also wants to let you guys know that April is Genocide Awareness and Prevention Month, and we've got some exciting things planned with the advocacy team at National. They will be holding a workshop at the University of Toronto in April, which will bring together experts who have engaged in on-the-ground genocide prevention efforts, as well as those who've been personally affected by genocide, for example, members of the South Sudanese diaspora community in Toronto. We have also solicited some experts on genocide prevention to write a series of blog posts for us to publish, so stay tuned and share throughout the month of April. So for those chapters that are not in Toronto or the Toronto area and who are interested in participating, also try to drop me a line, and we'll see how we can get you maybe to video conference into whatever events they have going. And note also that the advocacy team is working on putting together some materials or kind of like little workshops to do with MP engagement and outreach. And these will be made into videos that we will post on YouTube and can be used through by chapters everywhere. So that's a kind of exciting project that we have underway right now that will be really important as we go into the federal election season in the fall, which you can imagine there will be many campaigns related to that. This April also marks the 100th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide. Events in major Canadian cities will be taking place, and Elizabeth is going to post about these events on our social media page. But if you see any coming up that she hasn't advertised yet, feel free to let her know. And again, if you attend any of these events, please take pictures and tweet about them, and we will share it at National. So that's the update. Okay, so I have a question from U of T here. In terms of Google Drive, should each member of the executive team create their own stand account, or is it fine to just use one chapter account? That's a great question. I think for logistical purposes, we've determined at this point that there will be just one chapter account that can be used. If you have particular reasons why you'd like to have more than one account under your chapter, just email me and we can talk about it and think through the pros and cons of that. And if it's a sustainable idea that serves an important function in your chapter, we can definitely create a new account for you. So does that answer your question, Mariam? Okay, I'm going to assume yes. And you can email me about that or comment again if you want to ask more. Great, so again, I'm going to say that I'm pretty sure there's a time delay on this, so you guys are not seeing necessarily the call 100% live. So sorry if that causes some confusion, and we'll see how we can deal with that in the future. Okay, great. Thanks, Mariam. Okay, so those are the updates from Elizabeth. We'll see what else we got for you here. Hold on, lots of windows open. Okay, in terms of opportunities for chapters coming up, there's an Amnesty International webinar that's open for people in the Vancouver area related to a particular conflict. I will forward the information to the UBC chapter. If anyone else is interested in that, just send me an email and I will forward the information to you as well. As some of you might be aware, there's a Human Rights Watch Film Festival coming up in Toronto as well, so I'll be forwarding that information to people in that area, and I'll probably just send it to everyone just in case you're in the area. I'm going to try really hard to not have a bias to any particular cities, but there are limitations. So I'll try to advertise as widely as possible in the case that anyone is traveling in that area at the time. So I'll be forwarding different types of opportunities that we see like this over continuously throughout the year. Let me know if you feel like it's too many and maybe I should wait and accumulate a couple and send them out a bunch in a row. And this is definitely something that we can include on the chapter digest. So some of you might have heard already that we have a new team member at the chapter on the chapter level, and she's going to be taking on the chapter digest. So hopefully we can get that up and running really quickly. And definitely it will be going on in August and September and October during elections, federal elections. Okay, so that's about it. Does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask before we wrap up? Including you, Scott.
Questions to you or questions from everyone to me?
Either.
Yeah. Well, I certainly have nothing aside from what's been said, for sure.
Great. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to skip ahead to the last slide here to just let you know that please mark your calendars that the next chapter call will be on April 12th. So I will send details along in advance. Please remember to remind everyone in your chapter that whoever is attending the call, please do mark yourself as a viewer in the Google event, and that way I don't have to chase you guys to see who's going to be attending or not, and I can just see, and it just helps kind of logistically. So I really appreciate those of you who are able to do that this time. And then I will pause for questions, and I'll stick around for a bit, and hopefully you guys will too. But if you have to go, then please feel free.
Mm-hmm. Eddie, do you have the website for the Armenian Genocide Centennial Committee with the events they have? Did I pass that on to you yet?
I don't think so. Maybe you can send that along again, and I'll forward it.
Okay, sure. I'll do that.
Great. And then just while we wait for questions, a couple other kind of updates from National while I have you guys here. Our new website will be launching shortly, so you'll be excited to see the changes that we've implemented. No more dark and black and like kind of depressing websites, and we've been a little bit more judicious in our choice of pictures and images, but we hope that we can increase the diversity of those images in more than one way through the 10th anniversary campaign and the pictures that everyone will be submitting from across Canada. So that can be a really good use for those kind of pictures as well. So if you have anything kind of abstract, crowds or event pictures that you think would be great for the website, point those out to me and put them in the Google photo album, and you can start tagging people. We're going to start sharing that on social media soon, so you'll start seeing it come up on Facebook, and you can just like tag all the people that you've known who have ever been involved with Stand to see what they have sitting around on their hard drive. We also have a LinkedIn alumni group now that will be engaging to participate in the 10th anniversary campaign as well. And I also have some ideas for how chapters can make better use of the website. So if you have ideas about that, please let me know. And that's definitely something we can work out over the summer. Even if it requires some web development, I think that we can get the resources together to put to do some work on that if you guys have a great idea about how chapters can benefit more from the national website.
Just sent you the URL, Eddie.
Great, thanks, Scott.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I hope to be hearing a lot more from you guys later on. I'll be in touch about transitions, about scheduling transition meetings in the coming months. And I think I will send an email to each of your chapters asking you specifically for information on how you run your transitions now. If you have any ideas or materials that you'd like to share, that would be very appreciated. So remember that the next meeting is April 12th. And I think we can end it here. Thanks everyone for attending. Have a great rest of your weekend and deal with daylight savings time in the best possible way. And yeah, have a good one.
Thank you, Eddie.
Bye, see you, Scott.